You don't buy them, I am.
So we go home. And this is a pretty decent bone too. I like that.
Was all of them supposed to?
We call that fox pie.
I mean, was all of them supposed to have a name?
As you have probably already figured out from my channel name, I live in Florida. And specifically, that's Northwest Florida, the end of the Panhandle. That weird part of Florida that's on Central Time instead of Eastern and gets everybody all confused when they come to visit. A lot of people assume that just all of Florida is going to be on Eastern Time, but sorry, no, that dividing line between the time zones comes straight down. It doesn't make a little turn to include the rest of Florida. That's not how that works. But yeah, being in Northwest Florida, we are within reasonable driving distance of northern Alabama. It's about a 4 or 5 hour drive away from here to the Birmingham, Talladega area. And in that area you are also going to find the little town of Jacksonville, Alabama. Yep, Jacksonville, Florida and Jacksonville, Alabama. So now there's two Jacksonvilles to get everybody all confused. Jacksonville, Alabama is the home of a Bear & Son Cutlery, previously called Bear MGC. One weekend out of the year, Bear & Son opens up their factory for their big annual sale, and the weekend before Thanksgiving they let you come in the factory and you can buy their factory seconds and their overruns, just stuff they need to get rid of, and you can get it all at really awesome discounts too. And we're going to take a look at some of the knives that my dad and I brought back from our previous trip up there a few weeks ago, the weekend before Thanksgiving. And this is not going to be a review in the slightest, and maybe I'll come back and do full-on reviews of some of these after I've carried them and used them for a while. For now, we're just going to do an overview of some of the knives I picked up while I was there. And the first one is the Model 401 Lockback. Normally a $25 knife, I believe, and I picked this up for about $8. Mechanically, there's nothing wrong with it. It's totally fine other than being a little bit stiff opening and closing. Cosmetically, there's these weird kind of little mars or rough spots on the edge of the handle there by the rubber insert. Other than that, there is not a thing wrong with this knife. It's got a decent factory edge on it. I might touch it up a little bit yet. Perfectly good lockup, no play in any direction. It's pretty comfortable in the hand. And the pocket clip on this is similar to the Gerber Order I showed previously. And that might be one gripe I have in the future, is this is a really tight pocket clip, like cold steel tight. And it's resting right on that rubber insert too, so I'm worried this might grab onto my pocket a little bit too hard. But we'll see. But mechanically it is just totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all. So there's that. That's the Model 401 Lockback. Let's see, what else should we do here? And I have the Mini Trapper or Tiny Trapper Abalone Pearl Handle Scales. Ooh, it's so pretty. And this one has a little bit more trouble, I guess, just cosmetically. Look at the back here. We see we got some hairline gaps going on in the back springs and spacers that just look kind of ugly. And then on your second blade, your spay blade, we have some centering issues. And when I first got this, I thought the very, very tip of the blade might be scraping the liner. I'm not totally sure about that. Sometimes I think it is, other times I think it's not. And mechanically, this one is also totally fine. This has got really, really good snap to both blades. Got nice strong back springs in them. No play in either of the blades at all. So mechanically it's totally fine, just cosmetically it wasn't quite what they wanted. So this was also a factory second. This was normally at least a $60-something knife. And I got this for, I think, about $25. Oh my gosh. And here we have the muskrat. A muskrat with what I believe is kind of a manufactured stag. It's a bone handle made to look like stag. I think Case Cutlery, who I'm sure everybody knows the name of now, does something similar. They call it bone stag, where they take a piece of cattle bone and just jig it, and it looks just like horn, like actual stag, whatever. So again, overall it seems totally fine. Overall a nice knife. And the reason I think this one was a factory second is one of these blades has kind of a weak back spring to it. So yeah, here. You can hear it in opening and closing the knife. You can really feel it. This has got a really good positive snap to this blade right here. And then this blade is noticeably quieter and doesn't have quite the snap. And then sometimes when the knife closes, this blade bounces back and peaks up ever so slightly at the tip. And now that I've said that, I don't know if I can get it to do it for the camera. And basically that's it. Other than a weak back spring in this blade, this is also totally fine, totally usable. It doesn't ruin the knife, it's just not quite as good as what Bear & Son wanted, and so it was a factory second. And again, there is no play in either of the blades. The blades are not hitting each other, they're not hitting the liners, just suffers from one weak back spring, and that's about it. Other than that, it's very nicely finished, no gaps. The bolsters meet up with the handle scales very, very nicely. And overall, it's actually a pretty nice knife. So there's the muskrat. And we have the Trapper, one of these series of Remington bullet knives that Bear & Son manufacturers for the Remington Firearms Company. Again, there's not a thing wrong with this. There's no gaps, no hairline gaps, no fit and finish issues. And mechanically, it is almost perfect. Got really good snap, and then opening and closing, these blades are just the most incredibly smooth. Let good on a level similar to Case. Same thing with both of these blades. Very, very smooth opening and closing. Got nice strong back springs. Literally the only thing I could find wrong with this knife is there's the tiniest little hint of play in the spay blade. Other than that, there's not a thing wrong with it. This was also a factory second. I don't remember what I paid for this. It wasn't much. It was only about $14 or something. I like it. It's different from the usual trappers you see. It's really slim line. So more pointy overall. Slender than your average trapper knife. Really cool. I like it. I'm glad I got this one. It's made for Remington by Bear & Son. Then, oh, this is a nice one here. We have the classic Barlow pattern with your usual clip and pin blades. And again, mechanically, there's not a thing wrong with it. There's no play in either blade. Very good, strong, positive snap, opening and closing. Everything's nicely finished and shiny and everything. I don't know that this one would even be considered a factory second, because there were a bunch of these in a box that I guess they needed to get rid of. And this was just an overrun, I guess. So mechanically, there's not a thing wrong with it. Everything is just beautifully finished on this. It's part of the Kodiak series from Bear & Son. You get it? Bear & Son, Kodiak. The only thing I could see that might make this a factory second is the spine of the blade. You can see it right there. It's not quite flush with the back spring. Not something that ruins the knife, it's just a minor little cosmetic thing. So maybe for that reason this would have been considered a factory second. But everything else about this knife is so good, so nicely finished, that I wonder, was this just an overrun? I don't know. Either way, I got this at a really good discount price. I think only paid about 20 bucks for this. So I thought that was a nice find. And then here, I don't think Baron Sun even makes this anymore. This is their sub-hilt fixed blade, obviously. And I'll say right away, this is fairly dull because it was just lying in a box with a bunch of other knives, and I assume was banging up against stuff with the cutting edge and everything. So yeah, I'm definitely going to have to sharpen this up. But other than that, there's nothing wrong with this at all. I don't even remember what I paid for this. It wasn't much at all for something that's been discontinued for a while, for something that Baron Sun doesn't even make anymore. Not a thing wrong with it. Very comfortable in the hand. Kind of a spear point blade. And again, we have those manufactured stag handles. They're pinned in place. And your nickel silver guards on the handle. So yeah, other than it needing a good sharpening, there is just not a thing wrong with this. And next, we have more of that manufactured stag. This time in the form of a Damascus butterfly, or balisong, or whatever the heck you call it. With a beautiful Alabama Damascus blade. This, I believe, was also not a factory second, just another overrun. Because again, this was in a box with a bunch of the same thing. And again, I don't remember what I really paid for this. It wasn't a whole lot. Because it's a factory sale. They just need to get rid of stuff. Everything must go, as the department stores say. So not a thing wrong with this. I'm not good at flipping this at all, so I'm not going to try to do it now. The butterfly knives always made me kind of nervous, so I'm trying to face my fear. So I need to learn how to flip this and do tricks with it. It's really cool. I like it. Again, not a thing wrong with it. And then another Damascus bladed knife and another Barlow. Part of a numbered series. And this one, for whatever reason, is 000. Okay. Again, doesn't seem to be much, if anything, wrong with it. Everything's nicely fitted and finished. Again, we have a good, strong snap to both blades. Damascus blades. Beautiful. I think with one of these blades, yep, right there. There is just a little, most tiny, hardly noticeable hint of side-to-side play in the pin blade, which comes to a very, very acute, fine, sharp, sharp, sharp point. So other than that little tiny hint of play, there's nothing wrong with this knife at all. You can hear it. Just how strong, strong, strong those back springs are. And then last but not least, we have a couple of jumbo trappers. And we'll start with this one. This is the same as your conventional trapper knife, just supersized. It is a big, big beast of a slip joint knife. This one's got white bone handles, nickel silver bolsters, and somewhere you can probably see the reflection of the camera or something. This one still has a little bit of grit from the factory in the pivot that I haven't bothered cleaning out yet. I need to get around to that. You see the Bear & Son logo. And your spay blade. And this is a really neat titanium coated finish on the blades, but it shows the fingerprints really easily. It smudges a lot. Oh well. And again, I don't remember what exactly I paid for this. It was not a lot. This would be at normal retail from a dealer, online or whatever. This would have been a very, very expensive knife. Didn't pay a whole lot for it directly from the factory though at this sale. Now, you can hear it in the spay blade. As I open and close this, I can feel it's got good tension to the back spring, but then you go to close it and it's just kind of sluggish. So there's still a lot of grit and grime in the pivot that I'm going to have to clean out of there. No play at all in either of the blades. It's like a bank vault. It's very, very secure. Opening and closing. You can really feel a good tension to these back springs. Beautiful knife. I like it. And then the other one's going to be the more basic jumbo trapper with the, I believe, Cocobolo wood handles. The same polished nickel bolsters, but only on one end of the handle, and you can see this one has them on both. Then on both of these you have a nice large lanyard hole on the end. And again, like most every other trapper knife, you're going to have your classic clip and spay blades, which I believe are just flat ground. That's not a gradual hollow grind, it's flat. This, as it is, has a pretty good factory edge on it, so it just slices like nobody's business. Out of all the knives I picked up this trip, this one seems to be the most perfect out of all of them. There is just not a thing wrong with it. You see the spine of the blade and the back spring match up pretty much dead perfect. Not a hint of play in either blade. And this one didn't have all the grit and grime in the pivot. This is, as it is, direct from the factory. You can just hear it. It's very secure. It's just quality, quality, quality. It's on par with case for sure. No play in either blade. No hairline gaps anywhere. It is just a very nice, beautifully finished knife. And that is my loot from our trip to the Bear & Son factory in North Alabama. If you're within reasonable driving distance of North Alabama, it's a trip I definitely recommend making. Again, it happens once out of the year. A weekend before Thanksgiving, Bear & Son opens up their factory and you can go in there, see where the knives are made, and obviously get some crazy awesome discounts on a bunch of them. So yeah, definitely check it out if you're close enough to do so. A lot of these I just got for the collection, and then others I do plan on actually carrying and using. We'll see how they do, see how they hold up, and maybe I'll do follow-up videos on some of them and do actual full-on reviews instead of just the little overview I'm doing today. And that is about all I have got to say about that. Bear & Son Cutlery in Jacksonville, Alabama. So definitely check it out.